3, 2, 1. We're Monsters
Incorporated, and we're fighting for your right to party.
Try that again.
Why?
I was stunned at how much of a lag there was.
Yeah. To me, I'm talking exactly when you are.
Okay,
so
great. For me, it's like a solid whole second.
Okay, let's go. Let's start again.
That's fine. Okay. 3, 2, 1. We're Monsters Incorporated,
and we're fighting for your right to party. You are so bad at this.
I am doing it in sync. I didn't stop.
Yes, you did. Are you not going to say we're fighting for your right to party?
And I said it at the same speed, even though there was a minute's lag.
You didn't say we're fighting for your right to party.
I said, I let you say it, and then I came in at the party part. But now that I realize that, I would have to say it a second early in order for it to sync up with you.
Well, that's the thing about
the
magic of editing.
Confusing. Okay, so for Christmas, for Jesus' birthday, Mom got me these like super cool, like Dungeons and Dragons like map pieces that are just like super nice and have a bunch of different like buildings with like interiors and like different little like props like treasure chests and tents and stuff that you can use. And they're
Can
like
I interrupt you
super
super
dope.
quick?
What?
Can I interrupt you super quick?
Okay.
Is this a story? Or is it just you talking about the cool D&D thing you got for Christmas?
This was just something fun I wanted to say. It's gonna turn into an anecdote if you would let me finish.
I'm just checking.
But
if you're confident in the power of this anecdote, then please proceed.
Talk. They're all on these like big like cardboard squares, and you have to cut out all the pieces. So I've just been cutting out little cardboard pieces for like 48 hours, and like my hands, I can feel it, and it hurts.
Okay, alright, that was fine. It just seemed...
Yeah, why don't you trust me?
Okay, alright. Because sometimes you come into the podcast and you're just like, I had a good day at school today.
That's only when
like,
you have an
cool.
anecdotal story, and then you're like, alright, Adeline, time for you to have an anecdotal story. And my life is boring, so sometimes I don't have one. So sometimes I just have to say, life has been good today. Leave me alone. And ignore the fact that I said anecdotal story.
Adeline.
Yeah.
Adeline.
Yes.
What was the film for today?
It was, Creatures Industries.
It was Monsters Incorporated. I have a scorching hot take on this movie.
Okay.
Are you ready for this? I already tweeted about it twice today.
Great.
Because it's that important.
It's that hot of a take.
This movie is about fear-mongering.
Yes.
And also, it's literally about people who are fear-mongers. Because they are selling fear to people at a profit.
Hey, Jackson.
It's literally and metaphorically about fear-mongering.
Cecilia literally has that line where she says, I'm sorry, Mrs. Fearmonger is on vacation. Would you like her voicemail?
Right? What does that have to do with it?
I'm
still right.
Yeah, you're
Why are you booing me? I'm right.
I'm saying that it's obvious and that the movie kind of makes the joke.
It's not obvious.
Okay.
That is a beautiful insight.
Okay.
That I made with my great intellect.
Do you got Delunctious? Do you have nope. That one's not good.
I've got a big head now. I'm acting like a diva because now I can just coast on that take forever.
Yeah, now you can just burp and fart through the whole podcast and you'll be good.
I don't even care. People want to hear what I have to say now. I've got street cred now. I was the guy who said that thing about Monsters, Inc. that was so smart.
Don't you know who I am?
I can make any kind of gross noises on mic I want now. People don't even care.
How dare you?
they'll muscle through it because they want to get to the cool things that I have to say.
The hot takes. They're like, man, we want those spicy takes. I mean, so after watching this movie, it's been a very long time since I just like sat down and watched Monsters Inc. Like outside of like my childhood. Like I feel we watched this movie a lot, like so much so like I have so many like tactile and like texture memories of this movie. Yeah. Like for like the ones that like really stuck out is the scene where he like flushes all the like kids' toys down the toilet. Like I don't know why. And then there's that little assistant guy who's like a little like broccoli guy, and he's got like 12 eyeballs on his head that each have a little hat. And like he like high fives Sully and his hats like fall off, and they make such a specific sound that's just like engraved into my brain.
Yeah, that's a great piece of sound design. Just like the sound of all those little helmets like clattering to the floor is so funny.
Anyway, but like what I've really learned like watching this movie again is that I just had no fucking clue what was going on in this movie when I was a kid.
Right.
I was like watching it now and I was like, oh, this is like super interesting and like cool and like has like a little bit of like a political tinge to it. And I was like, oh, it
really does, yeah.
This is dope. And then as a kid, I was just like, heh, monsters.
Right. No, yeah, it's I mean, so yeah, my biggest like genuine takeaway from this, besides the really cool and smart thing I said at the beginning, was just that I feel like the piece that this movie is missing is that it's not about the company trying to hide the fact that laughter is more valuable, right? It's more like they're just unaware and kind of unwilling to try other things, you know?
Like the gas industry.
But I feel like I think a stronger message is because fear-mongering is like a sort of bigger idea than just like the selling of products, right? Mm-hmm. I think what would be a lot more interesting in terms of the story is if they were like, oh, we know that laughter is more powerful, but it's more profitable for me, Mr. Waternoose, for us to use screams instead. Yeah. And I'm trying to keep it covered up, so that's why I tell everybody that kids are dangerous. That seems like the thing they are trying to do when they first wrote the script, but somehow it never quite translated through to the final product.
And I mean, those are very similar ideas. Yeah. Like, it's like the fear-mongering is that this is the way we do it, and there is no other alternative. It is implied that, like, maybe Waternoose knew that there was another alternative, and he kept it a secret because screams were more profitable for him. But I think it still definitely works. Like,
yeah. No, yeah, and the thing is, because the biggest thing that affects is just that, as far as we know, everybody in the whole world is on the same page that they genuinely think kids are toxic and dangerous, right? Yeah. There's no conspiracy and there's no cover-up. It's just like, oh. Because in actuality, in the execution of this, there isn't really any fear-mongering, because presumably everybody's just on the same page that this is real and true, you know?
Well, but I think it's because they're wrong that you get that fear-mongering. Right. And you get, I mean, because, like, the really obvious example is after the restaurant is destroyed and they get Boo. And basically Boo didn't hurt anybody other than people freaking out that she was there. And then you have all those people going on the news and being like, it's a joke. And they're like, the kid was flying around and shooting lasers. And they're like, I saw it do that. Like, it's more like it... Like, the fear-mongering has succeeded so much in this society that, like, the company itself is no longer just doing the fear-mongering. It's like the society itself has, like, totally taken care of it and internalized all that information. So now it's just, like, absolutely true. So, to that point.
So you're positing that presumably this was at some point a cover-up, but that was so long ago now that it doesn't even matter anymore.
Like, they've all, like, the fear-mongering has, like, already succeeded. We're, like, in the aftermath of the fear-mongering. Right, Because we really are. Because, like, they talk about it so much. Like, there's blackouts happening, and there is no energy. So it's, like, it's succeeded so much that, like, there is no alternative, and now the society is suffering because they do not think that there is any alternative.
Right. Yeah, I just wish we would have seen it. I wish it would have
Yeah,
been
yeah.
Mr. Waternoose who was like, oh, I know that laughter is super powerful, but I just invested millions in Scream-specific technology, and I can't let that go to waste.
In the Screamorama.
Yeah, the Screamorama. I spent billions on the Screamorama.
You don't understand how much I just spent on this new laptop that only works on Screamorama.
And if we start doing laughs instead, this whole thing is gonna go tits up on me.
I gotta throw away my PC and I gotta buy a Mac and I just can't.
I could just replace the battery because they do make laugh batteries, but that's a pain in the ass.
But then I
and
gotta
it
go
costs
to the
almost
Genius
as much
store,
as a whole new computer.
and it's the holiday season, and it's gonna be fucking crowded, and then there's gonna be a new kid there, and he's gonna lose my computer, and I'm gonna have to get a new one, and it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Let's just continue to scare children.
And it's easier to just scare the shit out of kids forever,
Just
honestly.
take a gun and just walk in the room, and then walk back out. That's all you gotta do.
I was gonna say, an easier thing to do, I think, than all their bullshit that they do in this movie, is to just walk in with a gun.
Yeah,
walk in with a gun, shoot it into the ceiling once or twice, and then just peace out of there. That's all you gotta do.
Straight back out. That's all you need to do. In this modern age, all you gotta do. Yeah, because they keep talking about that, and that's like kind of a theme of the movie, is one of the reasons why screaming isn't... Not only is it kind of weak energy to start with, like they're not getting as much of it because, oh, kids are so hard to scare these days.
Right.
And it's kind of, it's to me, it's a similar metaphor to when people are like, millennials are killing the X industry. Because it really is like the Monsters Incorporated refusing to change with how the kids of the world are changing.
Right, yeah.
Because they're like, they have that stupid video of the kid like watching the violent movie and just being totally bored by it. And it's like, and then we send in our big purple blue fluffy man to scream, and it just doesn't scare the kid anymore. And it's like, well, yeah. Because Sully's adorable. I don't know what you want. Give Sully a gun, and he would be so scary.
I was interested because this is the fourth Pixar movie.
Yes.
We go Toy Story, and then The Bug's Life, and then the second Toy Story. Dose. Toy Story 2, the one...
There's a girl now.
I almost said Two Toy, Two Story, but I already used that joke once, and I was just floundering because I couldn't think of any other joke.
Great.
So now I'm kind of rethinking. I thought I was really cool and smart at the beginning, but now I think maybe I'm just totally out of things to say. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'll keep you posted on how this progresses. You already used up
all your smart stuff. Now
I don't think I have
any farts.
I don't think I have any jokes left. I think I used all my good ones.
I gotta go to the store. Get some new jokes.
Toy Story 2. And I think that the Toy Stories are really committed to a certain amount of realism, you know? Like, obviously not true realism because it's a cartoon and it's about toys. Obviously. Don't put words in my mouth.
Do not at me.
But in terms of the tone and the dialogue and the way things move and are animated, they're very much trying to emulate the real world, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the same can be said for Bug's Life, although not quite as much.
To an extent, yeah.
Yeah. I was just really struck by the fact that the opening sequence of this movie, when the monster comes in and slips on the ball and lands on some jacks and has some jacks go up his butt, he freaks out and like runs up the walls and flips over and bounces around on his head and stuff, and it's like so heightened and cartoony, and I was just really struck by like how much of a departure that is from what Pixar had been doing before. You know, well, like they're approaching this project with a full, like really taking into account what they can be doing and not just coasting on what they've been doing already, you know? They're starting from square one in terms of like what they're animating and how it can be animated, you know?
Yeah, Mom was in the room with me when I was watching this, and we had just watched Finding Dory. And we were talking about, like, how, like, well, because we'd also watched Monsters University a few days ago. And we were talking about, like, how, like, much the animation, like, still holds up, but then, like, isn't as good as now. And, like, honestly, like, Sully and, like, Sully's hair, like, still looks really, really good.
Yeah, no, it
Because
looks great.
usually when you watch an old animated movie, like, the first thing that looks weird is always the hair, because it's such a hard thing to animate. And this one, like, Sully's just totally covered in hair, and, like, it, like, moves naturally, and, like, it's not as, like, thick as it is in Monsters University, but it still looks just, like, super, super good.
Right.
And, yeah, like, the missing pieces that, like, Pixar has just been able to, like, nail so well, like, the textures and, like, eyeballs and, like, having people, like, actually look at things rather than, like, look past things is kind of something that we talked about, too. And it's going back to, like, having this, like, more, like, animation not based on trying to mimic reality. For a really long time, Pixar, like, basically tried to avoid animating humans as much as possible
right.
because it's really, really hard. But, like, in this movie, I mean, there's not a lot of humans. We see a lot of kids, but, like, the adults are usually, like, shadow puppets, or we don't see them. But, like, Boo really looks like a person before Pixar was really comfortable with animating humans.
Right.
And, like, I think Boo looks really good, and, like, the way that she, like, moves, like, her, like, character movement is really, really good for that of, like, a 3-year-old or however old she is. Like, she just, like, totally, like, looks and sounds and acts like a toddler. And it feels like they nailed that so much, like, before they were even really comfortable in that space. And I just think it's really interesting.
No, yeah, the famous trivia fact is, like, at the time they were making this, it took a computer 11 hours to render a frame of Sully.
Yeah.
Because it had to render, like, individual hairs, and there's, like, a million some odd hairs on his body.
Yeah.
And then I thought, like, comparing that figure of, like, it takes 12 hours to render a frame of Sully.
Yeah.
Especially in the big final set piece at the end, which is, like,
Where
bigger
like,
and more complicated than anything Pixar's even tried to do up to this point.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
and
this
then you've still
enormous room with thousands and thousands of doors with Sully right in the foreground. I was like, that's gotta be, like, a whole week. Like, you just gotta, like...
just a computer, just chugging away.
Yeah, I know. Like, I have to imagine they, like, animated that sequence, set it up on, like, 100 computers, and just left it alone for, like, a month. And we're like, okay, we'll check back later and see how it's going.
I always talk about this. I have a really weird, like, fear of old computers, just because I just don't understand how they work, and it freaks me out. I have absolutely no goddamn idea how they made this movie on a computer in 2001. I just have no fucking clue. Like, how do you do that? Like, that just blows my mind.
Yeah. What I always like to think about, that I think is so interesting, is that, like, animated movies take, like, 3 years or more, especially when you're at, like, the Pixar level, you know, to make. And the animation technology available to you for the whole movie is only as good as it is at the start of production.
Yeah.
So, like, any movie that you're seeing right now in theaters today, you're seeing animation technology that's maybe 5 years old already.
Yeah. Well, that was the whole thing with the Jungle Book movie. Freaking... Not Michael Cera. Andy Serkis's...
Oh, right.
I got their names confused for a second. With Andy Serkis's Jungle Book. Is that they made it, and then they waited so long that at the time that they made it, the animation was very good. But then they waited like 4 years, and so when they actually did release it, the animation looked like shit.
Right.
Because they just waited too long, and it didn't look good anymore.
Well, I mean, I don't think it really looked that good to begin with.
Well, and then also it had a smaller budget, but that was a part of it. That was an element of why it looked like that.
No, yeah, I agree. No, but that's just the thing to me is when I'm watching, like, Toy Story 4, and there's that sequence of, like, you know, when the car is outside and they're rescuing from the gutter, and it just looks like reality. It just really and truly looks like you're looking through a window at the world,
God.
you know?
The rain in Toy Story 4 is so fucking bonkers.
And you're just like...
so good.
Yeah, you're just, like, blown away. You're like, this is spectacular. Like, how could it ever get better than this? And you just have to think, like... This is technology that's 5 years old already. That
Toy
I'm
Story
looking at
5
right now.
is going to come out, and we're all just going to shit our pants in the theater about how good it looks.
But yeah, no, I mean, just in terms of, like, what this... I don't know. The hair is such a big thing in animation.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like every Pixar movie, like, leading up to the certain point where it stops really being a big deal... Like, the hair just gets more and more impressive. And, like, the hair in this is great, obviously. But I always think about the hair in Incredibles. That's, so weirdly over animated because you could
dude,
tell how
that was
proud of it they were.
revolutionary.
Oh yeah,
They
totally.
were so fucking proud of themselves, and we were all so impressed. Like, it was great.
But yeah, no, I don't know. That's one thing that I think looks a little bit dated about The Incredibles, is that the hair is just, like, weirdly animated, like, much better than anything else.
They, like, released, like, before the movie came out, they released all these, like, tests that they did with the hair, and they were like, this is the cutting edge of animation, and it's, like, Violet's, like, head moving around with her hair on it, and it, like, kind of doesn't move as much as it should move, and I just imagine all of the animators of the past being like, whoa! And we're just like, oh no.
So since we're talking about all other Pixar movies.
Yeah, all of them.
I want to talk about how whack it is that they chose to make a prequel to this movie. Because, like, the movie is about how everything they've been doing their whole lives is wrong.
Yeah.
And they need to reconsider themselves and the world around them to improve it, to step away from the bad thing they've been doing this whole time, right?
Yeah.
That's what the movie's about. And they're like, wouldn't it be fun if there was a whole movie where we saw them in college when they were learning how to do the bad thing that hurts people?
When the tyranny began?
Yeah, and we just don't even talk about it or acknowledge it at all. It's not thematically relevant to the movie in any way. It's just about them becoming friends.
Yeah.
Whose idea was that?
Well, John Lasseter.
No, it wasn't John Lasseter, because these are Pete Docter joints.
Oh, yeah.
Let me double check on that and make sure it's not Andrew Stanton. Yeah. Okay, so Monsters Inc. are Pete Docters. And he goes on to do Up and Inside Out.
Yeah.
And that is all. But he's gonna do Soul next, which I'm really excited about.
Have they told us what Soul is about yet?
Have you not seen the trailer?
I don't think so. I might.
You should look up the trailer. It's really good.
Okay.
Do you want to take a quick break and look up the trailer?
No, we'll do no.
Okay. Because it's just about a guy who's like this black musician in New York City. And then, like, I mean, we don't really know what it's about, but the trailer is like, oh, I'm Jamie Foxx, and I'm a jazz musician, and I play the bass, and I want to do something with my life, and I think art's very important. And you're like, oh, okay, it's about him making a name for himself in the New York City jazz scene. And then he, like, falls in a manhole, and he's in, like, a weird inside-out world where he's, like, a little glowy soul. And Tina Fey is also there, and you're like, oh, man, this is a Pixar movie, all right. It's got whimsy mixed in with realism.
Mixed in? Whoa. No one's ever done that before.
I'm describing it in a very cynical way, but it actually looks really good.
It sounds like you loathe this movie.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, no, and I think it's really interesting because, like, the world of New York that they're animating in it is, like, really and truly looks like New York, and the people in it are moving around and interacting with each other like reality. They're not like over animated or cartoonish, like, at all. It's like the most strict realism that Pixar has done on that, like, big of a scale in a story about people before, you know? And I just think it's really interesting. I'm really excited to see where that goes.
See, whenever I think about crowds in New York, all I can think of is that one shot in Across the Universe where there's that giant crowd of people walking, and then, like, half the people take that, like, side step to the left and keep walking, and it's the coolest thing that's ever been done. Anyway, that's just where my head went. I also had a thought back when we were talking about hair in animation, and I feel like it's too late to say anymore, but I'll say it anyway.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, because the whole thing with Frozen came out is that they were like, Elsa has like 10 times the hair that Rapunzel did. And everyone was like, whoa, what the heck? But it's just because they said it was Rapunzel, and Rapunzel's whole thing is her hair. And it's like, well, duh, she has more hair than Rapunzel does, because Rapunzel had like maybe like 100 strands of hair, tops.
Wait, why do you say that?
Well, no, it's just people were like, well, that's crazy, because they were thinking of, like, the length of Rapunzel's hair and not, like, the number of hairs on her head.
Yeah,
and just, like, looking at the two character models, it's very obvious that Elsa has more hair strands than Rapunzel does.
Okay.
And then all I can think about is that one shot in Frozen where Elsa's whole braid just goes through her arm during Let It Go. And that's just where I am right now.
So
We
anyway,
were like
Monsters
the
Inc.
pinnacle of hair animation, and her brain just goes straight through her chest. I am like constantly like on the pendulum swing of either shitting all over Frozen or being like, Frozen wasn't that bad, you guys. And I will never land on either side. I'm just constantly switching.
What do you think about Onward?
I remember when I saw the first trailer, I was like, this looks really fun. I wonder what this is going to be about. And then I think I saw like the second trailer and it wasn't about what I thought it was about. And then I was just confused. But now I don't remember what happened in the second trailer. So I don't remember.
They're like, oh, we found this spell to bring back our dead dad. And they do it, but something happens halfway through. So it's just his legs. So it's just like his disembodied legs in jeans running around.
Yeah, that's just not what I thought. I thought we were going to go on like a classic fantasy adventure, but like with a modern spin, and that was gonna be what it was. And then it doesn't. I don't think it's gonna be that. So
yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is a movie that has sort of a negative vibe attached to it right now. Like I feel like in general people are kind of like, I don't know. I've learned that whoever Pixar trusts to make trailers is very, very bad at it.
Yeah.
I feel like every Pixar movie for the last, like, 3 years, I've seen the trailer and been like, oh, man, what's going on with this?
Yeah, and then you see it and it's great because it's Pixar.
Yeah, exactly. I guess, I don't know, because I guess the most recent Pixar movies were, like, Toy Story 4, which was great. But then, like, before that, it was, like, Incredibles 2, which I was disappointed in. But it wasn't as bad as the trailer made it look, though.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Even
Toy Story
still.
4 had terrible trailers, and I don't know
those are, like,
why.
the worst trailers. But, yeah, I don't know. There's just something about... There's a certain talent to being able to cut a trailer together with, like, bits of dialogue and making the movie still come across as fun and watchable, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like telling people what goes on with the movie without... Because, like, everybody's biggest criticism of any trailer is like, well, you just showed me the whole movie. Why do I need to go see it now? Which is sometimes a really fair criticism, depending on what the movie is. But, like, yeah, like, how much do you show to, like, establish what's going on and get people interested without giving them too much information or just... showing the wrong parts of the movie or cutting in the only 3 jokes that are in the movie into the trailer so like that I think that it is a comedy with more jokes than those 3 jokes. But in reality, those are the only 3 jokes in the whole film.
That is a fatal mistake. Have you heard about the Sweetie Todd trailers?
No.
So, Sweetie Todd, their marketing team decided that when they were cutting the trailer together, they would just happen to not put any singing in it at all.
Oh, no.
So the general public who wasn't familiar with Sweetie Todd or what it was had no idea it was going to be a Stephen Sondheim musical.
That is
when they walked
so
in.
good.
So,
that's like the equivalent of walking into a Star Wars movie without knowing that Darth Vader is Luke's son. Like that's like that same level of like not being in the know. That's so fucking good. Yeah, if I could go back in time.
But literally, like you can see in like the box office reports, people were really mad about it.
Oh yeah, oh definitely.
Because like the opening weekend was huge. And then it just fucking dropped off a cliff. Because people were just like, no, I didn't want a musical. Musicals are for sissies, and that wasn't what I was hoping for. I was hoping for a slasher comedy from Tim Burton. Yeah. It's just so funny. And, like, there were all these articles that people wrote about people, like, walking out of the theater when Johnny Depp started singing.
Those are cowards.
I know, it's just so
absolute heathens.
Like, and that's the thing, right, is that they kind of were onto something because they were like a lot of people who might be attracted to the aesthetic of this movie would be turned off by the fact that it's a Stephen Sondheim musical, right? But I think I don't know, because you can either like make it really upfront and risk alienating those people, but you know, confirm a different audience, right? Yeah. Or you can do that and just piss off the people who don't know it's a musical. while also simultaneously pissing off the people who know what Sweetie Todd is because they're like, why isn't he singing? What's going on with this?
But then you're that person who's like, why isn't this a musical? But then when you see Johnny Depp start to sing, and that moment of just relief and happiness has to just be through the roof.
Yeah.
My God. Okay, Jackson, you need to come to Spokane so we can watch Cats together, because I haven't seen it yet, and I've just been watching the rest of the world losing their minds, and I don't understand.
Can I tell you, Cats is just the worst musical ever.
Yeah.
It sucks so bad.
Have you seen, okay, I'm gonna talk about TikToks for a second. Have you seen the TikTok? It's like a TikTok challenge where they're like, as the credits roll on Cats, turn to your friend and ask them for 3 character names, and they won't be able to fucking do it.
Oh no, I got you. See, my favorite cat is Skimbleshanks the railway cat. He has...
This is worse than Warrior Cat's names. This is worse.
No, okay. See, look, I saw Cats a couple of weeks ago.
I thought you were gonna say a couple of times.
No, I only saw it the one time. See, I don't know. I'm a little bit worn out on the so bad it's good laugh at a movie thing, you know?
Yeah. Jackson, that's our whole lives.
I mean, but it's not even necessarily... I don't know, I'm trying to describe. Because something like Batman vs. Superman is different, right?
Yeah.
Than something like Spider-Man 3 or like Cats, where you're just like, this is a disaster. This is horrible. What's happening? You know? But there is a shot in Cats where Jennifer Hudson is singing Memory, the big, dramatic, famous song that sucks so bad, by the way. Every song in Cats sucks ass. But she's giving her absolute everything in this performance. And there are, like, tears streaming down her face. And she, like, collapses on the floor in the end of it. And they cut to this reaction shot of this nameless cat we've never seen before. And he's just staring in horror, and a single tear rolls down his cheek. And it's the funniest thing in the world. That shot has, like, been haunting my dreams ever since I saw it. It's so funny.
The only footage that I've seen of the Cats movie is this video that someone took. I think it's during that scene. Someone's like, no, it's when they're, like, talking about catnip or whatever, and they're just, like, focusing on all of the background cats as they're, like, jizzing in their pants and being so weird about the fact that they're talking about catnip. And it's, oh my God. And Idris Elba is just so naked.
Yeah. Okay, here's the thing about Idris Elba in that movie.
They edited out his dick.
No, that was Jason Derulo. They edited out his bulge. I don't know. They might have edited out other people's bulges. Jason Derulo was the one who was very vocal about how he didn't want them to do that. He was very
upset that they did that to him.
No, Idris Elba is weirdly giving a really good performance in Cats. He's, like, really dialed in and, like, super genuinely interesting and engaging to watch.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was not expecting this from him.
Okay, well, like
Idris Elba's, like, really killing it in Cats.
I mean, if anybody's gonna be good in the Cats movie, it's gotta be Idris Elba. Because he's acting alongside maybe just the weirdest collective cast of people that I've ever fucking seen. I think, like, the casters just, like, looked at a piece of paper of, like, who is famous, and then just, like, randomly pulled people out of it, and were like, this'll be good. This person's famous.
No, yeah. So, some good cat names include, I already mentioned Skimbleshanks the railway cat, who has, like, genuinely a really good, like, musical dance sequence that I actually really like. He's my favorite cat, is Skimbleshanks the railway cat. Another good one is James Corden plays a character named Bustopher Jones.
That's what I call my penis.
Which is, I think, the funniest collection of syllables that there could ever be.
Bustopher?
Bustopher Jones, yeah.
That's not a name.
What is the name? Oh, fuck. What's the name
naming
of
their fucking cats
Jason Derulo?
Every fucking cat on the planet is named either, like, Oreo or Cupcake or Spots. And they're like, nah, in this reality, people name their cats things like Bustopher.
Yeah. No, that's a whole thing in Cats. Is the very opening number, what's her name? Francesca Hayward, the lead, is like, oh, I'm a new cat in town and I don't even know what's up. And all the other cats show up and they're like, oh, what's up? We're the Jellicle Cats. Here's our whole thing. You have one name that humans give you, but you have a real cat name. Also, that's a secret to humans. And mine's Mr. Mistopheles. And you're like, okay, that's fine. Like, you've got, like, secret cat names and she has to, like, earn her cat name because she's new. That's fine.
It's warrior cats.
They never address the whole secret name thing ever again. It literally never comes up ever again.
I think they're just trying to tell you why all these cats have stupid ass names. It's just, no, that's their secret cat name.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to talk about cats for a while. Because
why does this always happen with Pixar movies where we just talk about literally anything else?
It's okay. I like to think that people like this.
Okay. I sure do hope. Just, God, I wish. My greatest wish is that other people like this.
So, it's based on a series of short stories.
Fine.
Oh, shoot. What's the name of the guy? Hold on.
The only thing that I know about the writer of the Cats musical is that he was writing a sequel to the Phantom of the Opera.
Are you talking about Andrew Lloyd Webber?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that he was writing a sequel to the Phantom of the Opera, and then his cat walked across his keyboard and deleted all of it, and I think maybe saved humanity in the process from a Phantom of the Opera sequel? What the fuck would that even be?
Okay, anyway.
Because the Phantom of the Opera dies at the end of the Phantom of the Opera, or disappears. Right. I don't know what the fuck happens to the Phantom of the Opera. The Phantom of the Opera is a bad play.
That sucks.
Don't at me.
So, okay, T.S. Eliot wrote a series of short stories that are just like, cats are interesting, and they kind of go out and do their own thing at night, and you don't really see them until they come back in the morning. I wonder what they get up to.
Yeah,
that would
it's
be
like
funny.
Toy Story, but with cats.
Yeah, so he wrote a handful of short stories being like, oh, here's this cat that lives on the railway. His name's Skimbleshanks. I don't know if that was T.S. Eliot or Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Well, see, like, okay, having to have a silly name like that is fine when it's a real-ass cat and not a man in a terrifying fursuit.
But yeah, but then Andrew Lloyd Webber was just like, oh, I like these short stories. They're very fun. What if I just took the words in these short stories and just set them to bad music without changing them at all?
And what if the plot of it was that all of these cats are performing, and whoever wins gets to die?
Gets to just float up into the sky.
What if that's what this was about, instead of whatever the fuck it's actually about?
So here's the thing. Here's the thing about cats. Here's my big take. As a movie, it's really not so horrible. It's just that it's an adaptation of the worst, most boring, stupid musical ever. And
they're doing the best with the pile of shit that they were handed.
And, like, a lot of the musical sequences are actually really fun. And, like, Idris Elba and Ian McKellen are both doing a really good job. And there's a lot of fun choreography. And there's a couple of big set pieces where it's like people are dancing and there's a lot of visual effects. And you're like, oh, hell yeah, this is cool and fun. I'm enjoying this. It's just that Cats is the worst musical ever created by man is the problem about the movie. It's just that fundamentally it's the worst.
Yeah, God. See, like, what, for me, the perfect, like, money spot for, like, a movie being, like, bad but still really, really enjoyable is when, I say this all the time, it's like, it has to be, like, 50-50, like, 50, like, really, like, good ideas that are, like, paying off really well and, like, really cool shots, and you can tell that they're working on stuff, and, like, they do have some really cool ideas developed, and they do have some really good shots, and they do have some really good scenes, and the other 50% is just, like, where everything falls apart and doesn't make any fucking sense, and is garbage, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, that's, like, the perfect, like, quote-unquote bad movie. That's what Batman vs. Superman is. That's what Spider-Man 3 is. And I don't think Cats, I haven't seen it yet, of course, so this is an opinion about a movie I haven't seen, but I don't think that it gets there. I don't think that's what happens.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I think it's probably like 75-25.
Yeah, of like
there's enough good that I'm like, I think it's 75 bad stuff, 25 good stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And like in terms of like the craft and like what they're actually trying to do and what the final product is, I was like, yeah, I mean, this is pretty much as good as a Cats movie could be. To be frank,
you did everything you were supposed to do,
right?
But it still ended up being Cats the movie.
Right, exactly. So something that I am really interested in. This is our last thing about Cats before we start talking about Monsters, Inc. again.
I swear to God.
It's not even really about Cats. It's just that, like, at the end of... I don't know. A few years ago, there were two, like, really successful original low-budget movie musicals. We had La La Land, and we had The Greatest Showman. Both of those did super well.
La La Land had a big budget. Am I incorrect in thinking that?
I mean, it's not a blockbuster budget. It had a relatively high budget for being an independent movie.
For what it was, yeah.
Yeah. But, like, in general, it's not like a big blockbuster production.
Yeah.
And those were both, like, really successful. And people were like, oh, maybe there's a market for this musicals thing again. Mm-hmm. And then they just didn't follow up on it at all for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden we're hitting a point, I guess because a lot of these things went into production like after those things did well. Mm-hmm. But what we're not doing, we're not making low budget original movie musicals. We're going for giant budget blockbuster adaptations of existing musicals instead. Mm-hmm. Because just this year we've got Cats already, and then Steven Spielberg is doing West Side Story in December. Tick, Tick, Boom is being directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda for Netflix. In the Heights is coming out this summer. And there's a Wicked movie scheduled for 2021.
So Lin-Manuel Miranda is just skipping all the way to the bank because there's no way in hell all these Broadway people aren't going to be like knocking down his door being like, hey, Lin-Manuel Miranda, do you want to breathe on our project?
What's weird, though, is that Lin-Manuel Miranda isn't really involved in The Heights, besides it being an adaptation of his musical.
A thing that he wrote, yeah.
Because it's in production at the exact same time as a comparably sized musical that he is directing. Yeah. He kind of can't do both at the same time.
Well, I honestly, like, what's going on with Lin-Manuel Miranda right now is actually really cool. I heard part of an interview where he was talking where he's like, I already did Hamilton. Hamilton is what's I'm gonna be known for forever. Hamilton is gonna be written on my grave. Like, that's it. I've done it. Like, what do I do now when I've basically, like, I've done it. I've done the thing that I was meant to do. Now I'm just gonna do what I want to do. And I was like, that's really cool, Lynn. I'm glad that you are happy about your life.
Right, yeah. And apparently what he wants to do is be in a bad Mary Poppins movie.
Yeah. So the thing about that Mary Poppins movie is that I started it, I watched 3/4 of it, had to stop and do something else, and then I've just never returned to it.
Yeah, Mary Poppins returns, but you do not.
But I have not yet.
Okay, so that's been
Monsters,
Jackson and
Inc.
Adeline talk movie musicals 2020.
2020.
Here's first of all, I want to say,
Jackson, we should watch The Great Gatsby.
Oh, we could do Great Gatsby. That'd be a good one.
Yeah, we'll do that instead of something this month.
Oh, maybe. Okay.
Instead of Speed, maybe.
Okay, I want to do Speed still.
I know you want to do Speed. I think that cut this out of the podcast. I think Speed would be funny. I just really don't think we're going to be able to have a full conversation about Speed. I think it's going to be like, isn't this fucking hilarious? And that's going to be the whole conversation. We've
just proven that we can talk for 40 minutes about something entirely different than the movie. If it's a movie we care about, okay. I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Anyway. I mean, this is a movie with a really, like, high concept, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're like, what if we had, like, these crazy monsters who all work for this big, like, mundane corporation, and the movie's just kind of about them, like, living their everyday life and behaving completely normally. Yeah. Right up until something crazy happens. And, like, their names are all, like, George Sanderson and James Sullivan and Mike Wazowski, which I think is the funniest thing about this movie, are just the names of all the monsters.
Just totally regular
just
names.
Being, like, Doug Johnson. Like,
Well, what I think is funny about
stroke
this
of
movie
genius.
is that it is very much like a lot of the plot of like what's going on is very high concept with like Randall, like because you got the thing with like
Randall Boggs.
Yeah, well, it's because like the whole thing, what you were kind of told up front is that this is about the all-time scare record. It's about Sully and Randall like competing to get this thing, and like at the end of the day, even though it's important, it's still kind of a mundane thing. Like it's just a record that they're both trying to beat. And then when you find out that Randall doesn't give a shit about that mundane thing, he is trying to do something that's like hugely evil and like racketeering and based off fear-mongering, and it's just like total like we're not dealing with the regular stuff anymore. Like we're into something like bigger and kind of darker than like your everyday life.
Right, yeah.
But I also think it's funny that like honestly like the main plot of like what's happening with Boo is like another Pixar story that's like basically about parenting and how you raise a child. And I feel like it's more of a metaphor for like adopted children, and of course it's not a perfect metaphor because they don't adopt Boo, that's not how that works, but like it's just like Sullivan like kind of becoming a father to something that he was told that he was supposed to hate, and it's just I really like it.
And sorry, I had a thought but I lost it. Give me just a second. I was just gonna say that this aesthetic is, I mean, it's hard to say, because I was 4 years old when this movie came out.
Yes.
But
I was 1 year old.
Yeah, I don't think the whole, like, big, ridiculous world with really mundane characters trope in animated movies was really a thing before this. Yeah. And I think this movie is really instrumental in things like Wreck-It Ralph down the road. Like, all these other things.
Definitely.
That, like, I guess Shrek is kind of like that, too. That was the same year. So, I guess Shrek and Monsters, Inc. both. But they're just sort of, like, pioneered the, like, animated movie trend of just, like, have something big and crazy, but have the people kind of act like regular people, like they're just doing their job, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of any other good examples besides Wreck-It Ralph.
I mean, it's... Anyway.
Yeah, whatever, fine. Maybe, you know what? I think I am just full of shit. This is... Okay, Jackson, in the future, cut all the rest of that out and cut this in instead. You know, it's kind of funny. This movie's a little bit like Wreck-It Ralph. Anyway,
oh my god, you're so right.
I really like Billy Crystal in this movie.
Yeah, he does a great job.
He walks a really fine line. It would be so easy to make Mike Wazowski the most annoying character in the world.
Oh yeah, just the worst.
But he's, like, genuinely so funny.
I know. It honestly, I think it is because of the setting of, like, the mundane people in the world. Like, Mike Wazowski seems like a character, like, straight out of The Office. Like, you know? Like,
right. He's kind of the Michael Scott of this movie.
Yeah, he has such a big personality, but, like, he cares about, like, really stupid things. Like, he's just, like, at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to him, basically. Well, first of all, training with Sully. But then, like, I love that part where they're watching the commercial, and he's like, oh my god, I'm in a commercial, and then the phone rings, and he's talking to somebody about how he's on the commercial, and then he turns to Sully, and he goes, it's your mom, and then he just keeps talking on the phone, and it's so good. Like, it's just, like, he's, like, weirdly, like, self-absorbed, but not in, like, a mean way. It's just, like, that's just where his head's at. And, like, he wants to drive his car to work so fucking bad because he bought this, like, fancy car. And, like, he just fucking sucks at doing paperwork. Just, like, stuff like that. Yeah. Like, it just seems like he just, like, fits so well into the setting that, like, alongside with, like, Billy Crystal's performance, is that he just, I don't know, he just, like, fits so well into the world that, like, things that would be annoying aren't annoying because it just seems like real life.
Exactly, yeah. And Mike Wazowski's so fun. Like, it's just between, like, his character design, where he's just this little eyeball guy, and the fact that, like, I have to wonder if this was, like,
gets thrown around so much.
I know. But I have to wonder if this is, like, a Robin Williams situation, where they, like, planned the character with Billy Crystal's persona in mind, or if they just happened to cast Billy Crystal in this role. But, like, there's something so perfect about it.
I know.
Because you have to imagine most of the stuff he does in this is ad-libbed, you know?
I love that line so much, where he's in the scream vacuum or whatever it's called. The horror machine. The fucking, God, that thing is so scary. Anyway, when he's sitting in that machine, And he's like, where's the kid, you one-eyed cretin? And he's like, it's cretin. If you're going to insult me, do it properly. And it's like, oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and later in that scene is a line that I really love, where he's like strapped to the chair and like about to be tortured, and he's like, Fungus, I know you like cars. I know you really like cars. If you let me go, I will let you take a drive in my car. Which I think is just so funny. Like,
it's just so in character. It's so good.
And that Fungus is voiced by Frank Oz, by the way. I didn't know that until today.
That.
Yeah. But yeah, like, and we've talked about this before. I think there's a certain thing about nostalgia is that it's a lot more powerful if you haven't been exposed to it in the interim between seeing it as a child and seeing it now, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, the 2 Toy Story movies were another thing we had on VHS that we watched all the time.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've watched those more frequently as we were growing up and as adults, you know?
Yeah,
this
definitely.
is probably my first time, like, sitting down and watching Monsters, Inc. since I was, I don't know, watching it on VHS, probably.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably not true, but it's true enough.
With that awesome blue VHS that we had. That thing was awesome.
Oh, that's right, yeah. I think we should get into colored Blu-ray cases again. There was a hot second where people were experimenting with it, where, like, oh, Age of Ultron has, like, a red case instead of the traditional blue. And then Ant-Man had a black one for no particular reason.
Well, but then you're just confusing all the grandparents who already don't know what Blu-ray is, and all they know is that it's the blue one.
Right, no, fair enough. I just want to get a little more creative with packaging, because I feel like Blu-ray packaging has gotten a little bit stagnant.
It's the most boring thing. Yeah, because they really got fun with VHSs, and maybe that's just the time period, because in the 90s, people just got fun with everything because they could. Because it was the future, and they could do whatever the hell they wanted.
Right.
But like, even with, like, records, like, colored records are so fucking cool. Like, I don't know. And, like, you can't make a CD a different color. That's not how it works.
we gotta find a way to revolutionize disc packaging.
Listen, me and Jackson just got new phones. And it's like, you get a new phone. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. And they're like, you get to pick the color of your phone. And then I was like, oh, holy shit, dude. This is the coolest thing that's ever happened. I get to have a purple phone? Are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
Basically,
okay.
I'm just saying that we all have goblin brain and we just need to accept it.
Okay. So my two like big picture criticisms of this movie. Mm-hmm. First of all, I think that it would be better. I mean, like I said at the beginning, I think it would be better if it was more like a conspiracy that was being perpetuated by the characters we see in this movie. I think that would make it a much better and thematically stronger movie, first of all.
Yeah, I get that.
And second of all, is a little bit more of a logistical thing. But Boo isn't really important specifically, right? Like, presumably Randall could take any kid. So it becomes weird that he is so obsessed with particularly getting a hold of Boo. There's never any explanation as to why Randall needs to have Boo specifically, you know?
I mean, I think putting it in the metaphor of parenting, especially parenting in, like, adoption or foster care, I think Randall really does represent, like, a past abuser.
Right.
Especially in the way that Boo feels towards him. Like, totally. The first thing that she does is, like, draw a picture of him because she's so scared of him, like, to just, like she's just so messed up about him. And the fact that Randall seems to, like, he enjoys the fact that she is so scared of him.
That's true. He kind of has a vendetta.
Yeah, I think Boo is important. I think it's important that it's Boo, not really in the plot, because plot-wise,
logistically, but
it could have been any kid. But I think in the plot and the kind of metaphor that we're building, we talked about this with Toy Story, that the metaphor could be real and could not be real. But of Randall as a past abuser and just, like, having, like, no, it has to be Boo, because Boo is fucking scared of me, and I know that I can fucking get as much scream juice out of her as possible, or whatever the fuck Scream is.
Yeah, that's a really good take, actually.
Yeah.
No, yeah, and I mean, it doesn't even necessarily need to be a logistical reason. It could just be that, like, Randall, like, kind of has it out for this kid, you know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
He enjoys the fact that she is so scared of him, and it, like, makes him feel powerful, you know? Like, any other kid would probably also be scared and would probably get him, but it's like, that's not his kid that, you know, he has his weird relationship with, you know?
Yeah.
No, I think that's a really smart take on it, because I hadn't even thought about it in that sort of
Well, now I can burp and fart my way through the rest of the episode.
Yeah, no, do it. You've earned it.
This has been my hot take.
I just remember as a kid watching this, the sequence where they're in the apartment and like all the sirens are going off outside and the searchlights and they're trying to figure out what to do, like really stressed me out as a kid.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think honestly, for me, being a little girl, it was the fact that Boo was upset, like, really made the scene, like, it freaked me out. Right. Because, I mean, I obviously identified with Boo a little bit, so when Boo, like, starts crying and she's, like, scared, I was like, oh, holy shit, no!
I think for me it was more like just, this is really intense, and it's a kid's movie and I'm not used to it, and they're just kind of letting it sit in the intensity of it, you know?
Yeah, well, because they don't have a way out of the situation, basically. So they're kind of just trapped. Exactly. And so you've just got a closed box that's just filling up with tension until they get Boo to stop crying, and then the tension kind of releases. Well, until that release, it's just like, oh, holy shit, dude, this sucks.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that really freaked me out as a kid was, like, Fungus being all pale and having, like, swollen lips after he gets out of the scream machine. That was really upsetting to me.
Yeah, it's because it's such a visceral change.
I know.
And it's
but, like, even if he was just pale, it wouldn't be so bad. But the fact that he has, like, big, red, swollen lips from getting the screams sucked out of him is like, what the fuck? Why?
Yeah, that machine's fucking scary. God, I got, as a kid, that scene where they're, I feel like I just appreciate this movie so much as an adult. Like, when they go to, like, the screams, basically they figured out that Randall's, like, doing something. He's not just cheating to get the scare score. Like, he's doing something, like, big and evil, and so they go to Waternoose, and you have that scene where Sully scares the crap out of Boo, and it just, totally destroys the relationship, and it hits you like a freight train.
Yeah.
And then you fucking get it to Waternoose, and the heel turn with, like, Waternoose and Randall working together is so good. And then, oh god, the scene where they're in the wasteland, and Sully is, like, trying to open the door again, it's so fucking good.
It's really intense. No, and the thing I love about the sequence where Boo gets scared is that, like, I feel like, just in terms, on a smaller scale, obviously, but it, like, mimics sort of a real trauma in the sense that, like, he doesn't get to, like, sort it out right afterwards, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Boo gets scared, and the whole time the whole thing is happening, Mike is, like, having that conversation with Mr. Waternoose. You're going through that whole thing with Sully. Well, meanwhile, in the background, everything else is just still plugging along exactly as usual, and he still kind of has to be engaged with that, but he just went through this thing, and he has to kind of stop for a second, but he can't really afford to, you know? Yeah. And I feel like that's just the way that things like that work, you know? Like, everything in your life doesn't stop for you when something bad happens to you. And I feel like just the way that it's set up in that sequence has a really visceral effect in terms of just, like, and, you know, that really sucks, but the world's still going, and, you know, we gotta keep moving, you know?
Yeah. And I really like the metaphor that I've set up of, like, the adopted kind of child metaphor, which, to be fair, is not my doing, it's the movie's doing, but, you know, whatever. Like, I love that scene when Sully comes to rescue Boo, and you have that conversation of, like, Mike trying to talk to Sully while he's being attacked, and Mike can't see that Randall's attacking him, which is basically a metaphor in itself, but, like, it's I love that scene so much. Yeah. Where Mike is like, I understand that just because you care a lot about Boo, it doesn't mean that you don't care about me. And, like, even if things are hard for you, I still care enough about our friendship to want to help you out. And it's like, that's really good. And also, you get to punch Randall in the face. So it's a great scene all around. Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like that whole thing is kind of played for comedy, though. I don't know. To me, like, when he comes in and he's, like, being really vulnerable, and it's just like, oh, the gag is that Sully is fighting a guy and he doesn't get it. Yeah. Like, and that dialogue is so great, and it kind of feels like Billy Crystal just made it up on the spot in service of that gag, you know?
Yeah. And I think think it functions as both things. I think it can be a gag. Like, that's what we talk about with Pixar. Pixar is really good about balancing gags and emotion without one kind of derailing the other. I feel like this is one of those scenes where it's like, that really works well. It's like, Mike is being genuine, and they're having a genuine, like, conversation right now.
Right.
But at the same time, there is a goof going on, but just because the goof is going on doesn't stop the traction of the scene, you know?
If it were me, I would have taken a second and had them have just a short conversation right after that.
Yeah.
Just to be like, oh, yeah, no, it's fine. Our friendship means a lot to me, too, and I'm going to validate that thing you just said in the eyes of the audience afterwards. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Instead of just fucking moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Because the fact that they just move right on from it afterwards just makes it feel like, haha, that was funny. You know? Yeah. I want them to take a second and, like, acknowledge it and be like, this is important and something that matters before they just move to the next thing, you know?
Yeah. God,
but I don't know. Maybe if they had done that, I would have felt like, oh, that was a little clunky and kind of slowed down the momentum of everything. I don't know.
Yeah.
Filmmaking's hard.
I really like the finale of the movie, because I really like that whole scene where they have the right door, and they're trying to power it up so they can get in, and then that door gets called back, and Waternoose is basically handing them over to the FBI, and you have that really great chase scene that's fucking terrifying of Waternoose, who is already, like, I don't know why, like, at the beginning of the movie, I don't know why Waternoose isn't scary, and I honestly think it's because of, like, his voice acting and that performance.
Yeah.
Of him just being like, oh, I'm a nice, happy old man, like, that kind of, like, energy, that even though he's a fucking terrifying crab monster, like, he just, like, totally hides the terrifying crab monster just, like, underneath his personality. So that scene where he's, like, fucking chasing them down the hallway is, like, so fucking scary, and he's, like, skidding on the side of the walls and, like, trying to burst through a door, and you're just like, holy shit, dude, this guy's fucking scary.
I mean, yeah, I don't know, it's James Coburn. It's like, he's just like this really old school movie star with a good old person voice, and is just like really friendly. It's just like, oh, hello, James. I was in the Magnificent Seven, and I'm your boss. And like, it's just like, oh, I can trust this guy. He's an old movie star, he sounds like.
Yeah. And there's this just like, this might just be me trying to get more things out of this movie than are actually there. But like, I think there is like this really cool, really subtle relationship between Boo and Mr. Waternoose, where when they first get there, Boo is just kind of goes to him because he's like a weird crab man, and she's like, hey, weird crab man. But then when Sully scares her, the first person that she goes to is Waternoose. Right. And I think that's solely because she recognizes him and that he was nice to her, so she goes to Waternoose.
No, that's fair.
And then you have that scene where he's fucking chasing her down the hallway, and she's just fucking terrified, and I think that, again, plays into the metaphor of Boo being an abused child, and it's just like, oh man, dude, fucking Waternoose is scary.
Yeah, no,
because he does have that heel turn, not only with Sully, but absolutely with Boo, which is scary.
No, yeah, I mean, it's sort of the, give me just a second to collect my words.
Yeah.
Come here, words. Come here.
Come here. Come here.
That's a bad joke. I'm going to cut it out of the podcast.
Okay, great.
But yeah, I think that, you know, there is sort of a thematic element with Boo of, like, trusting somebody but then having something bad happen because of that, you know? And it's interesting because we get a lot of stories like that with that sort of thematic idea and, like, people dealing with that kind of trauma. But this is interesting because it's a baby. Who doesn't really have a character as a human yet, you know?
Yeah.
So she's
100% reactive to the people around her.
Exactly, precisely. And it's a cool and interesting sort of dynamic. I don't know. It's cool that, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think what happens at the end of the movie. How does Sully sort of get back in Boo's good graces?
Well, he rescues her from the Screamorama machine.
Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I think it just sort of goes to show that, like, there are certain people that there's a validity to hurting somebody by mistake, you know?
Yeah.
And then not everybody who hurts you deserves to be cut out of your life. I think there's a similarity between this and Did you ever watch Lindsay Ellis's video on Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2?
No, I didn't.
Her whole take on that movie is, like, the mission statement is just that, like, there are different kinds of abusers, right? There are some, like Yondu, who is trying his best, but is still manipulative and hurtful, but he's, you know, somebody who does genuinely care about you and wants what's best for you, and those people are worth forgiving and worth working with and, you know, moving forward with. And then there are people like Ego the Living Planet, who don't
I
deserve
hate to
your
break
time.
it to you, is the bad guy.
Yeah, who don't deserve your time and don't deserve to be validated or forgiven or anything like that. They're not worth it. And I think an argument can be made that in the Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2 of this movie, Sully is kind of the Yondu and Mr. Waternoose is kind of the Ego the Living Planet. And I feel like maybe we're just full of shit, but like that,
No, there's definitely evidence. Like,
yeah.
I mean, just like I said, like there's very specific moments where Boo interacts with not Waternoose, and the way that they develop through the movie is definitely similar to other patterns that we've seen of her interacting with other people. Right. So I don't think it's a huge thing. I think it's something that was definitely put there, though, you know?
Okay, how do you feel about the very end of this movie? Because I think I would like it better if they just didn't do that.
Well, I really like the scene where they show you the new factory.
Oh,
I
totally.
think that's important.
Yeah,
and
I'm talking about him going back and meeting Boo again.
Yeah, I think it...
Because I think there's just a stronger amount of finality if it's just like the door's shredded and that's something he has to deal with, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not like...
A conversation that I've seen happening on the internet is the idea that when you're a foster parent, you have to sometimes let a kid go, and you have to be okay with that, because if you're not okay with that, the kid won't be okay with that, and that creates just a whole bunch of issues for the kid. Right. And so I feel like, playing into this child metaphor that we've made throughout the podcast, I think if he let Boo go, and he was totally happy for Boo to be home, and then he just, like, kept the picture in the piece, and that was just for him, just to remember it, and then he could move on with his life knowing that Boo was taken care of. I do really like that. I mean, it's obviously a happy ending that Sully can go see Boo and he can interact with Boo. Like, that's obviously a happy ending. I don't think the movie would be better if that wasn't there. I think it would just be a different tone to end on. It ends on, like, this kind of, like... It ends on a happy tone instead of a bittersweet tone, which I think they just preferred the happy one over the bittersweet one, you know?
Right, yeah. No, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that you could just have the big new factory be enough of a happy ending, you know?
Yeah.
You could just end with all the people being happy in their cool new jobs and making people laugh and...
Well, I think I would have liked it if they fixed the door, but not just for Sully, but if they just fixed the door so that Boo could be a part of the great new system that was in place.
Somebody else gets the Boo door and she gets to hear stand-up comedy in bed like everyone else.
That the system that had been used to hurt Boo can now be used to make Boo happy, and it's just like, yeah, like just really cementing how much things have changed. Like, I think we could have ended the movie at that scene where Mike is doing stand-up comedy if Boo was the kid that Mike was doing stand-up comedy for.
Yeah,
like, I think that would have been really good.
And that would be especially perfect because she was the one who laughed at him getting hurt the whole time, you know?
Yeah.
And if it were, like, coming back and seeing Boo as, like, slightly older and Mike is doing
Mike's
his
trying to do stand-up comedy.
Also,
and
by the way...
she's just not having it.
The joke that totally went over my head when I was a little kid, where Mike is like, anyway, I'm coming to you live from your room. Hey, what's up? Where are you from? Like, that's so good. That's a really funny joke.
I fucking love that scene where they're trying, this is just us slowing Billy Crystal, but where they're trying to power up Boo's door, and he, like, does that thing where he, like, kicks himself in the crotch, and he's like, oh, sorry, her hood was covering her eyes, I didn't see it. And then Mike just gets pissed, and then Boo, like, crosses her arms and makes that little pouty face, and Sully's like, hey, let's not yell, because we're still trying to get her to laugh. It's so good. Like, it's just so good of, like, what a little kid is like. It's so good.
My final take on this movie on a subtextual level is that I think that scene with Mike in the kid's bedroom at the end takes on a lot of extra meaning when you consider that it was written and animated by people who work in children's media.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it seems like they're always trying to do something and like have a greater intent and do something a little bit more intellectual, and kids don't like it, and then they burp up their microphone and they go crazy.
And they're just like, fucking fine.
Yeah.
I'll eat a microphone and throw it back up. Are you happy now, kid?
Kid, stupid kid. You don't know what's good for you. You don't know comedy. Anyway, hey Adeline, do you know?
Is there no trivia time?
No, there is. I was just about to do that.
Oh, I look at my watch. It's trivia time.
Because on the one hand, I don't want it to be like, let's do trivia time, and then let's do the review, and then it'll be over. Because it feels like that's like everything at once, and I don't like that. Yeah. But a lot of the time, the stuff in trivia time pertains to the end of the film, which we haven't talked about yet if I do it earlier, right? Yeah. And I can't decide which of those two evils I want to take. Anyway, for today, we're going to do the first one. Hey, Adeline.
Hey, Jackson.
Did you know that after helping Waternoose exile Sully and Mike to the Himalayas, Randall gets exiled at the end of the film?
Who the fuck is writing these facts? Like, I want names.
Adeline, literally anybody.
Like, yeah, just fucking, but who's, like, going through them and being like, this is the one, this is a real mind bender. Like, did you know that after a thing that happens in the movie, it's like, fuck, that's not trivia. I also have just watched the film because I'm on the IMDb page.
Right.
God.
And it's just like, I don't know, this isn't even something that's like hard to pick up on. It's just like, here's something they do in the movie that kind of has a resonance later. You're like, yeah, I know, I watched it. Anyway, did you know that Pixar's movies have a reoccurring motif of self-improvement? In this film, Mike is proud of how scary he is and excited about possibly breaking the all-time scare record. In the end, he realizes scaring really isn't so good and even has the whole factory making children laugh instead.
This is just a plot point.
First of all, they said Mike instead of Sully. That's the big point.
First of all, you got it fucking wrong. So it's not trivia if the trivia itself is fucking wrong.
And second of all, they have the audacity to claim that Pixar's films have a reoccurring motif of self-improvement, like, as if character arcs are not a motif of every meaningful story that has ever been told.
Any of them. Pick one.
Okay, here's one. I'm hoping that you can help me suss this out, because I really and truly am not even really sure what they're getting at with this one.
Okay.
Mike's line to Sully in the locker room, "There's more to life than scaring." While hiding from Randall and Fungus in the bathroom, Randall tells Fungus to get the machine up and running and that he will take care of Boo. Said machine turns out to be the Scream Extractor. End of trivia.
Are they fucking saying that they foreshadowed the Scream Machine? Because Mike, okay.
No, there's nothing. There's nothing.
Okay, no, that line where Mike is like, "There's more to life than screaming," than scaring. There's more to life than screaming.
I want that on a t-shirt.
There's more to life than screaming.
When we make merch, our merch has to be A, Snape is not your uwu baby.
Okay.
And B, there's more to life than screaming.
When Mike says there's more to life than screaming, and then they're like, and at the end of the movie, they realize that, like, laughing is a better crime. It's like, okay, you want to say that that's foreshadowing, I'll believe that. Like, that would have been good. Like, it's still not fucking trivia, but it's a thing that you can say.
That you could point
out. This one, I think, is implying that it's foreshadowing the Scream Machine, which sounds like a drink from Jamba Juice.
It sounds like a roller coaster at Silverwood.
It's because the drink that I get at Jamba Juice is the Orange Dream Machine. So I
thought you were going to say it was the Orange Screamer. I was like, that sounds tight as hell.
Yeah, Jamba Juice is a lot more metal than you think it is. But anyway, they're trying to imply that line somehow implies that the screamer is the thing. Or is it implying that Mike, like, knows about the screamer? Like, I don't even know what they're trying to say here.
There are two pieces of data that are completely unrelated to each other. They
just have nothing to do with each other. And it's like... And the fact that they bring up Boo, too. It's like, Boo has literally nothing to do with what you're talking about, other than the fact that the scream machine is meant for her, but that's not even what we're fucking talking about. Like, what are you... Who the fuck? Who is this? I want names.
I have one more.
I'm so mad that there aren't authors for these, because I would fucking hunt them down and just be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
The worst part of these is that there's always somebody who marked it as interesting. Like, usually, like this one in particular, this one that's just two pieces of data that are completely unrelated, it was 2 out of 15 people found it interesting. Which is like...
15 is more people reading this than it deserves.
Yeah, and like 2 people were like, and clicked on it.
That's a real head scratcher.
Okay, I have one more.
Okay.
This is my favorite genre of these trivia times. The signal for the CDA 2319 may be a reference to the letters W and S, which are the 23rd and 19th letters of the Latin alphabet. WS may stand for White Sock, a common threat to monsters, which can only be ridden by the CDA. W and S are also the initials of Mike and Sully's last names, Wazowski and Sullivan, respectively.
This is like when those people, like, prove that the Illuminati is the head of the government by, like, counting things on the dollar bill. And they're like, there's 9 things on here. 9 is divisible by 3. 3. Hydra is 3 heads. Hydra is a fucking Marvel thing. That's the Nazis. The government is Nazis. Like, that's just what it feels like.
Yeah. It's just, like, people reaching so far.
It's a W for what are you talking about?
Because, look, this is not something that you could just intuit casually while watching, right?
No.
Somebody sat at home and was like, oh, I'm a real IMDb trivia junkie, and I love contributing to those. I hear a number in a movie. I just run that number through as many weird criteria as I possibly can, and if I find anything at all, it's going right out there on IMDb trivia.
It's like, to their credit, this has been the only piece of trivia that is actually trivia. But the problem with it is that there's just no fucking way that was intentional and or true. Like,
right.
The W, like, it being, like, those 2 letters are W and S. It's like, okay. Like, and that could be White Sock. Like, I feel like that's believable. I get that. But then they're like, and also, it's the main character's last names. And I'm like, okay, you're too many things. You're wrong now. Like, you had me in the first act, and now you completely lost me.
Okay. Adeline, do you want to hear a 1-star review of Monsters, Inc.?
I do. I'm scared. What are they going to say?
This review comes from Letterboxd.com, and this user says, kids movie about monsters that suck the adrenochrome from helpless children. Remember that the next time you play it for your little tyke, you worthless sack of shit parent, quote unquote.
Are they trying to say it's too scary?
They're not good role models.
What did they say?
Just a fancier way to say adrenaline.
Oh, okay. You're a shitty parent. You let your kids watch Monsters, Inc.? What's fucking wrong with you? It's rated G.
Yeah, adrenochrome is a chemical compound produced by the oxidation of adrenaline. Presumably it comes out of your brain.
This guy's just the fucking worst because he used the word adrenochrome.
Yeah. And it's, Adeline, what you don't understand is that it means that they're bad role models.
Yeah.
He's implying subtextually that they're pedophiles.
Because all children's media is secretly bad.
And, it's just not a good thing to show your kids because, they could internalize that and grow up to be pedophiles themselves if they watch this movie. Is the thing about it. Anyway, my name is Jackson McMurray.
My name is Adeline McMurray.
And this has been No Nerds Allowed.